Hello there. In this problem we're going to graph this big monstrous, maybe it's not that bad, sine function. So, a few things that we want to get straight here. What they do, this number here, that's going to be the midline. And this number over here, that's going to be our amplitude. So we can sketch that into the graph already, and we can start to get a sense of, okay, the midline's going to be up here at 1, I'm going to need some space to go up a 3 from that and down a 3 from that, and we can scale that axis appropriately. Okay, so that's my goal, and now I'm going to try to get the midline in there at +1. This is not part of the graph itself, it's simply where the graph is centered. Okay, so we're dealing with sine. Now, big thing, whether it's sine or cosine, is what value of x is going to make this whole thing that's on the inside of 0. That's kind of, I consider that the starting location. Now, these things don't really have a starting location. They're going to go on infinitely to the right and left. But if you need like a home base, an origin, how are we going to make this 0? And the way that we're going to make it 0 is if x is pi/4. So at pi/4, now at some point we're going to need an axis down here. So pi/4, that's going to be an important one for us. So let's try to build that in our measurements too. All right, so I wanna let this go on for a little bit to maybe see multiple periods. That's kind of gonna whoops. It's gonna come down to what this value does and how far that stretches things out. But I need a home base right now, and that's going to be pi/4. So that is going to be located right, if that's pi, there's pi/2, pi/4 is going to be right there, bump. And at that point, I'm going to be, because it's a sine function, and sine is 0, you have no elevation, that's going to be located right smack dab on the midline, and that's where we're going to begin. Okay, now the question is, well, how long till I come full circle? So that's where this one comes in. This is the period. This one we saw, this is that's like our starting location. And you could also think about this one as a horizontal shift. So this other one's going to affect the period. And there's a formula in here that the period, which we can call P equals 2 times B. I'm sorry, I mean 2 pi over B. So our period in this case is going to be 2 pi over 1/2, which is going to wind up being 4 pi. Yeah. And it takes longer, the 4 pi here, because of that 1/2, that it's going to take me a really long time to get this number large enough so that when I multiply it by half, I'm finally up at 2 pi. So it's not actually going to come full circle until 4 pi later, which is going to be way over here. That's where it's finally going to repeat in this curve. Okay, now we know that it's a sine wave, so we're going to get some other things too. Now it's going to go presumably up, at some point it's going to come down, it's got to cross the midline again, and that has to be exactly halfway through there. So if the period is 4 pi, every 2 pi we're going to be crossing the midline, and we can go backwards for that too. There's going to be one back here also. Now, where we get up to our maximum, our amplitude there is 3. It's positive, so that means that it's going to curve up. That's important too. So it's going to start by going up, and then the question is, where does it get to its maximum? And that's got to be exactly halfway between these 2 points, and that's going to be at this location. And how high up off the midline? It's going to be up 3 from that whole thing. And halfway between these two, it's going to be down 3 from the whole thing. So there's the halfway, 1, 2, 3, right down there. And we can also work backwards, 1, 2, 3, it's going to be down there at that -2. And then it's a question of how is this going to curve. The slope on the midline is actually going to have to be at that perfect like 45. At the peaks and valleys, it's got to be flat. And it has to accelerate kind of smoothly through here, then slow down, come back down, pickup speed, and there we go. So things that I check for in these, make sure that your starting location's right, that you have that right shift there. So at pi over 4, let's mark that, pi over 4, that's where it should be neutral. So here we're getting a 0, it's sine, it's got to start on the midline. Then check to make sure the midline works. The top of it there, that distance, the same as that distance. That's our amplitude of 3. So not that it's going up higher here than it is going down there. And also the period here, that was that 1/2. So the period's not 1/2, that's the scalar that affects the period. The period is 2 pi divided by b, which got to be 4. So after 4 pi, it's got to come sort of full circle. Halfway in between those, it's going to hit the midline again. Halfway in between those, it's going to hit the peaks and the valleys. Make sure that we're going the right direction. We're going to go up because that one's positive and it's a sine wave. And that we don't have any scrunching going along in this graph either. Like this comes up and this comes down, and this one like goes up faster. Those are all things that I look for. Okay, thanks for watching. Character and Scholarship for Life.